Hello Internet people, Paul Summers from paulsummersphotography.com, and in this episode I'm going to teach you how to dodge, burn and tone like a champion. Stick around. So we're back and we have this adorable little puppy that is sitting on our screen, and this shot comes from a website called wesaturate.com, and they supply free raw files for you to practice editing, and there are many sites like this that will supply people's free raw files for you just to play around with. This is particularly handy if you're a landscape photographer. I do a lot of landscape, and sometimes you just can't look at another desert, and so having a puppy to play around with and to fix up, that's a nice break. It also gives you an interesting challenge, a different style, and sometimes you're just stuck for an idea. You've hit a wall, and so going to these sites, you can have a look at other styles, other genres of photography, and maybe something will spark your interest and get you going again. So in Google, just type in free raw practice files and bang, it'll come up, and there'll be a whole lot of websites. Some of them even have a weekly competition where they judge the best person's editing on a particular photo, and if you win, you don't actually get anything except the kudos, and maybe you get to pick next week's challenge and one of your photos that you may have difficulty with that someone else is editing and can give you some ideas. So that's something that's very much worth checking out. But today we're looking at dodging and burning, and this little fellow needs a little bit of dodging and burning. And Adobe Photoshop gives us the dodge tool and the burn tool, and they're good. They do what they say. You can choose your shadows, midtones, highlights, and the amount that you want, and you can just go ahead and do it and that sort of thing. The only problem with it is that it is destructive. Once you've done it, all you can do is undo it. You can't adjust it, you can't do anything else with it. It changes pixels on the photo. And we don't want that. We want something that we can dodge and burn, and then after we've done half a dozen more things on the photo, we might have to go back and lessen the dodge and increase the burn or add to it. So here is how to dodge and burn non-destructively. So we make sure that we're on our layer, which is our background for this one, and we go up to the layer menu and choose new layer. Now, normally when you want a new layer, you'd go down to this little icon here and you'd get a new layer. Don't do that. We have to use the menu, layer, new layer. And we're given a dialog box, and it's always good to name these things, because if you don't and you've got a complex document, it's very easy to get lost, and you'll be turning previews on and off till you find the right one. So we've called it Dodge, and here we have the drop down menu of all the blend modes. And this is exactly the same menu as the blend mode menu in your layers palette. But when we choose overlay, we get a checkbox, fill with overlay neutral color 50% gray. And we're going to check that. And what that's going to do is going to give us a new layer with 50% gray in it. You can also choose soft light. It's not as harsh as overlay, but once you've done it in overlay, you can have a look at it and you can change it to soft light if you prefer. So we're going to make sure we're on black and white, and we're going to start with our black because we're going to dodge, and we've got our brush at a nice size, and we adjust the opacity and we'll take it down to about 17-18%, because we can build it up if it's, oops, gee, I hate it when I do that. Okay, back to the brush, and we can make it a little bigger, and we can start toning now, and we can take those darks and really burn them in. So around his eyes are good because he's got lovely bright eyes, and his nose can do a bit of dodging, and certainly down around his chest it's all badly lit, and around his fur we want to break up the tones in his fur a little bit. So that's nice. Okay, so let's leave it at that. Now, at any time we decide during our non-destructive edit process that we want to change any of that, we can change it to soft light, which makes it lighter, or we can lower the opacity to make it not quite so strong. So that's the advantage of using this method. Let's switch over to our white brush, layer, new layer, mode, overlay, fill with overlay neutral color, yes please. And we forgot to name it, so we'll name that now, simply because that is good practice. And we're going to leave it on 17%, and we're just going to start lightening some of his more lighter features. Give it a bit of tone down around his neck and the tufts of white he has in his fur, his little foot, back, his ears. Okay, and just apply a bit to his eyes to brighten up his eyes a little bit. Okay, so that's our little puppy. And again, at any time you feel that it's too much, take the opacity and lower it down, which you just can't do with the Dodge and Burn tools in the tool palette. Okay, now for a bit of a bonus tip using the same overlay blend mode. We're going to add some morning glow to our little puppy. And we're going to go down here and we're going to create a new layer the normal way. We're not going to go up to the layer menu. We can just add a layer and change the blend mode to overlay or soft light, depending what you prefer. And we're going to go in and we're going to pick a, not yellow because there's a lot of green. So we might take it towards the oranges a little bit. We can adjust it anyway. It's not a great piece of art. It's just to show you what we can do. And we're going to make our brush a little bigger, and we're going to set the opacity to 30% because, as we've seen before, we can lower the opacity, and we're just going to colouring him in a bit, particularly around the little brown tufts of fur that he has, and his back, which shiny. So we can do that. Okay, and yes, that's way too much. So we can take the opacity slider and we can take it all the way down, and around 30%, and that gives him some nice brown around his mouth and eyes and a little bit in his fur. So that's one way to tone a photograph. It's terrific for adding glow, particularly sunrise, sunset. Sometimes you get the colour, but the foreground may be a little lacking in colour. So it's good to take a sample from the sky and do a brush around the foreground. We have another photo here from, again, one of the free raw sites, and it's a lovely photo. A lot of blue, a lot of green, divided by this earth tone here, and I want a bit more of an earth tone and a bit, just a splash of colour in it. So I'm going to find a bit of a brighter earth tone, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to get a normal layer, normal new layer, and we're going to hit overlay, and we're just going to paint along where we want to brighten that up a bit. Okay, and that's a little too bright, it's a little too much. So we're going to back that off using the opacity slider, and if we have it around, I don't know, about 50%, that just lifts the earth tones a bit. So hope you've learnt 4 new things. Dodging, burning and toning, all non-destructive, and I also hope you learnt that the P key for pen is right next to the bracket keys to change your brush size. See you next time, and don't forget to check out paulsummers.com for some fine prints and merchandise, perfect for presents.